Shangri-la, arguably one of the most unique and difficult maps in CoD Zombies. Since its release, it's had one of the most compact and interesting map layouts. So, what makes this map so unique and difficult? How have players pushed the map to its limits? And why does it have one of the most controversial records in CoD Zombies history? On June 28th, 2011, a new DLC would be released to the public. This DLC was named Annihilation and contained a new zombies map called Shangri-la. This map was fairly unique as it introduced the first wonder weapon that did not kill zombies. The weapon was named the baby gun. When a player used the baby gun on zombies, it would shrink them to a size of a baby, which allowed players to instantly kill them with any weapon, including their feet, by running into the shrunken zombies. Although, if you do not quickly kill the shrunken zombies, the zombies will regrow back into their original height. This means you can no longer kill the zombies with any weapon unless you shrink them again. Furthermore, Shangri-la contained no special rounds such as hellhounds and also contained no traps. On top of that, the map was extremely compact. This proved to be challenging for even the most veteran players as it was almost impossible to train zombies. Unfortunately, because of the difficulty, many players hated this map despite the unique features it introduced. But that did not stop everyone from playing Shangri-la. In fact, just a few days after the map was released, the first documented record would be uploaded on July 1st, 2011. The player who achieved this record was named That Guy Who Camps, and he reached round 34. The strategy he used to achieve this record was very simple. When he started a new round, he would stay near the water slide, wait a few seconds, and then go down the water slide. Then, he would walk through the entire underground section of the map. Once he got a horde of zombies, he would walk through the tunnel leading to Speed Cola and kill the zombies near the water slide with the baby gun. This allowed him to go through rounds without dealing with game-ending consequences. Since this was the first documented record, That Guy Who Camps strategy would set a path for new record holders. Surprisingly, the record would remain uncontested for 11 days despite receiving nearly 400,000 views. It wasn't until July 12th, 2011, a legendary player named Yodislaya would destroy That Guy Who Camps record by reaching round 69. The strategy he used to achieve the round was very similar to Camp's strategy. However, instead of going down the water slide, he would run through the first room into the underground section of the map, and then run back into the tunnel and kill the zombies on the bridge. This was slower than Camp's strategy, but was much more consistent, which allowed Yodislaya to double the previous record. Yet, there was one problem. On round 69, Yodislaya G-spawned. This is a unique error, as it usually occurs from having too many entities on the map. Some of the entities can be interactive equipment such as claymores, and if you place too many on the map, the game will give you the G-spawn error. Also, Yodislaya did not have any claymores placed on the map, so the fact he got a G-spawn was odd. Moreover, Yodislaya wasn't the only person dealing with this issue. Many other players were G-spawning in the 50s, but no one knew the exact cause. Some believed the G-spawn was caused by the baby gun, while others thought it was the map itself, as the error did not occur on any other map unless you placed an absurd amount of claymores. So all players could do is hope Treyarch updated the map to remove the error. Nonetheless, that didn't stop everyone from attempting the record. Knowing CoD's history, it could take weeks to potentially months before this error was fixed. So another player named John would take the challenge and attempt to beat Yodislaya's record. It wasn't until 8 days later, John would break Yodislaya's record by achieving round 72 on July 20th, 2011. Sadly, there isn't much to talk about this record since the gameplay was private. So we don't know how his game ended or the strategy he used. Fortunately, that does mean we can take some guesses. Considering Yodislaya's strategy was the safest and most consistent, it's highly likely John ran his strategy. But figuring out how his game ended is extremely difficult to do. You see, the most common ways for early records to end is game overing, getting a power outage, or getting a G-spawn. Since John's game more than likely lasted no more than 10 hours, I can confidently rule out a power outage since that usually happens when games last for days or weeks. What more than likely happened is John game overed or G-spawned. Unfortunately, John wouldn't have much time to celebrate his new record, as just one day later, another legendary player named The Relaxing End would reach round 106 on July 21st, 2011, making this the first round 100 on Shangri-la. Furthermore, The Relaxing End played 101 rounds without going down once, which was insanely impressive considering how difficult it is to play the map. On top of that, The Relaxing End did not G-spawn. Instead, he purposely ended his game by downing himself. So, what was the strategy he used to achieve such a round? Well, unlike Yodislayer's strategy, which used the entire map, The Relaxing End took a more compact and faster approach. First, he would start at the door leading into the first room. Then, he would do a big loop around the cave and bring the zombies near the minecart, and would do another big loop. Then, he would turn around, shoot the zombies, kill them, and run back to the door leading into the first room. This is why The Relaxing End achieved round 106. His strategy was a huge upgrade compared to Yodislayer's, which allowed him to achieve the world record. Because this was the first round 100 on Shangri-la, and The Relaxing End did not G-spawn, his record would last for more than a few weeks, making this the longest lasting record at the time. It wasn't until October 7th, 2011, when The Relaxing End's record was broken by Swask, achieving a new record of round 127, which was an incredible improvement from the previous record. Although Swask's record was more than likely cheated. You see, Swask had cheated records in the past, one of them being a round 100 on Call of the Dead. We know this was cheated is 11 years after Swask allegedly reached round 100. The theoretical highest round you can reach on Call of the Dead is 97 with the current strategies. Also, Swask never shows the in-game scoreboard in his Call of the Dead game. While this is valuable to the player, depending on the situation, it can be exceptionally valuable for those who are attempting to catch cheaters, as they can see if the amount of kills they got on the scoreboard matches with the amount of rounds they have completed. On top of that, Swask never showed the scoreboard in his round 127 Shangri-la record and did not show how his game ended, which is very suspicious. However, the most suspicious aspect of his game was the amount of points he had, which was 4,100,000 points. This is a lot of points to get just by round 127. In fact, it's so many points that even the most modern Shangri-la games struggle to reach that amount by round 127. Because of this, knowing Swask cheated a Call of the Dead record and also had some suspicious things occur in his 127 Shangri-la game, I can confidently say this record was more than likely cheated. After Swask's game, no new records would be achieved for a while. It wasn't until June 23rd, 2012, Horde Kill Repeat would achieve a new record by reaching round 109. Despite the small improvement from the previous record, Horde's game made a huge change to Shangri-la. Instead of running Relaxing strategy, he would run the AK-74 strategy. This strategy was extremely simple. First, Horde would stand in the Semtex room and wait for the zombies to spawn. Once they did, he would then run into the AK-74 room and do a few loops. Once he got all the zombies into a horde, he would shoot the baby gun, kill the zombies, and then run back to the Semtex room. Because of the simplicity, it allowed Horde to play very fast. Due to this, you could theoretically reach the first insta-kill rounds on Shangri-la, assuming you didn't G-spawn. You see, Horde Kill Repeat G-spawned in his game. It had been nearly a year since Yodislayer's record, and nobody knew what was causing this error. No matter what players did, they could not overcome the G-spawn. So, the chances of someone reaching the first insta-kill rounds would more than likely not happen for a while. Then, on January 7th, 2013, a new world record would be achieved by Dracula-Lantern, reaching round 145, making this the biggest round jump in Shangri-La's history. If it wasn't obvious enough, this game was incredible. Dracula-Lantern managed to play so consistently that he purposely ended his game on round 145. This means he did not G-spawn, which is insane considering the game lasted nearly 65 hours. So what was the strategy he used to achieve such a high round? Honestly, I don't know. Dracula-Lantern did not show enough footage showcasing the strategy he used. Similar to the record John achieved back in 2011, we have to guess what strategy he ran. Based on my estimations, it is highly likely he used relaxing end strategy. This would explain why he didn't G-spawn. Furthermore, this strategy was slower than the AK-74 strategy, which is why his game lasted nearly 65 hours. Though, it's still possible he ran the AK-74 strategy as it was the fastest and most modern strategy at the time. Either way, it doesn't really matter what strategy he used. The round he achieved was absurd and more than likely would not be broken for a very long time. But that's assuming he didn't have any competition. You see, 2013 was one of the most active years in CoD Zombies history. The amount of players trying to break records, especially on Shangri-La, was absurd. No matter what Dracula-Lantern did, his record would be broken soon, whether he liked it or not. And that's exactly what happened. On April 12th, 2013, a very good and well-known Zombies player named Hardcore NL would reach round 159, beating Dracula-Lantern's record by 14 rounds. Moreover, Hardcore NL was 4 rounds away from reaching the first insta-kill rounds. If you don't know what insta-kill rounds are, let me explain it as simple as possible. Because a zombie's health increases for every round you achieve, their health eventually reaches so high that it resets back to round 1 health on round 163. The reason this happens is because the game is coded in 32-bit, which has a maximum signed integer value of 2,147,483,647. However, the zombie's health can't go over this number, so when the game attempts to go over it, it bugs and then resets a zombie's health back to round 1. I should note that not every round after 163 is an insta-kill round. Instead, the rounds alternate, so round 163 will be an insta-kill round, but 164 will not be an insta-kill round. Because of this, insta-kill rounds make the game slightly easier and faster, as you can kill the zombies almost instantly with any weapon. This is why reaching the first insta-kill rounds on any map is such a big milestone. Players who reach round 163 or higher will enter a new world. They survived long enough for the game to break due to its coding. So, Hardcore NL reaching round 159 was much needed motivation for the community, as it showed insta-kill rounds could be achieved in the near future. On top of that, the strategy Hardcore NL used was a relatively new strategy called M16. The way the strategy worked is Hardcore would keep the door to power closed and sit in the M16 room. Then, when the zombies spawned, he would run into the AK-74 room and train them into a horde. He would then bring the zombies back into the M16 room and kill them. This was a huge upgrade to the AK-74 strategy, as it allowed for extremely safe horde ups and allowed players to play faster. Nonetheless, the record was now 159. The chances of someone achieving higher would take a while, assuming they don't G-spawn. But what if I told you both Dracula-Lantern and Hardcore's game were not world records? I know that sounds a bit crazy. So why aren't these two games world records? Well, it's not because they cheated or someone achieved a higher round before them. The reason their games are not counted as records is because they cancelled zombie spawns. You see, it's possible to cancel the ceiling spawns by killing the zombies before they jump down. This is possible with any weapon, although it most commonly occurs when using the baby gun, as it instantly kills a zombie before it jumps down. When this happens, zombies will no longer spawn in the ceiling and will instead spawn near windows. On paper, this doesn't sound controversial. In fact, it sounds like a good thing since zombies are forced to spawn in windows, which makes the horde ups much easier. However, a good portion of the zombies community considers canceling spawns is illegitimate since you're breaking the game to give yourself an advantage, which can be avoided as long as you don't kill zombies in the ceiling. Since both players canceled at least one zombie spawn, and a good portion of the community considers this as illegitimate, these two games will not be counted as world records. Because of this, Horde Kill Repeat's round 109 game will instead be counted as a world record. But shortly after Jack-O-Lanterns and Hardcore's games were completed, a new record would be added to the history books. On July 2nd, 2013, a legendary zombie player named Frenzy would achieve round 117, breaking Horde's record by 8 rounds. This was a decent improvement from the previous record, especially considering Frenzy ran the AK-74 strategy. This was odd as the M16 strategy was faster and safer. The reason Frenzy ran the AK strategy is unknown, but it's highly likely he did not know about the M16 strategy. Nonetheless, Frenzy running the AK strategy up to round 117 was very impressive as the strategy isn't perfect. In fact, he had 2 downs up to 117 before his game G-spawned. As awesome as this record was, it surprisingly would not last for long. A little over a month later, Frenzy would break his record again by reaching round 120 on August 6, 2013. Similar to his previous record, he would run the AK strategy up to round 101, and then he would suddenly switch to the M16 strategy. Unfortunately, this would cause him to go down on round 105 and again on round 110, probably because he was not familiar with running the M16 strategy. Although he wouldn't need to use the strategy much longer as he G-spawned on round 120. Because Frenzy G-spawned a second time in a row, he would eventually stop playing Shangri-la. This was extremely unfortunate as it meant his record would be very vulnerable. Many players took the opportunity to swoop in and attempt to break the record. Then, on September 18th, 2013, Little Bros would achieve round 118, just 2 rounds away from tying the record. It wasn't until December 1st, 2013, another player named ARPU8 would tie Frenzy's record. This game was fairly unique in a lot of ways. On round 42, he took his first down and then played 75 rounds without downing up to round 117. Then, he would purposely end his game on round 120, probably due to boredom because of how long high rounds last. Moreover, he would run the AK strategy instead of M16. Everything about this record was outdated. ARPU ran a more difficult and slower strategy and didn't G-spawn, yet he still managed to tie the record, which is very impressive. Fortunately for ARPU, his record would last for a few months. No players would give ARPU competition until March 23rd, 2014, when a player by the name of Ace Red would reach round 128 using the M16 strategy. Sadly, there isn't much to talk about this record, but there is one small thing Ace Red did that makes this record stand out. Similar to Hardcore's game, Ace Red did not use PhD Flopper, which is odd as almost all the previous record holders used this perk because it deals no explosive damage to the player. This is extraordinarily helpful as some players would use the Semtex grenade to kill the horde of zombies, but Ace Red decided not to use PhD and instead use other perks, which were Speed Cola and Stamina Up. This sounds like a really stupid decision, but Ace Red decided not to use any Semtex grenades. Instead, he would run into the zombies, which killed them. Unfortunately for Ace Red, this change would not inspire any other zombie players to go without PhD, since the perk was extremely useful. On top of that, his record lasted 36 hours, which shows just how much strategies have improved since Jack-O-Lantern's game. Lastly, on round 128, Ace Red would G-spawn, an error that was still not solved. Because the record had increased by only 11 rounds in the span of a year, it was safe to assume any future record would break the previous one by only a few rounds. However, Shangri-La was about to be pushed to its limits. On June 25th, 2014, a legendary player named Dabrowski would reach round 156, breaking the previous record by nearly 30 rounds. Sadly, similar to John's game, Dabrowski's 156 gameplay was private. This is why Shangri-La has one of the most controversial record histories in zombies. The amount of records that are cheated, missing gameplay, or cancelled spawns is ridiculous. Fortunately, I can confidently say Dabrowski's game was achieved legitimately. Even though the gameplay is private, he's had a clean history and has achieved many world records in the past. Sadly, Broski's record wouldn't save the Shangri-La record history. On July 23rd, 2014, Dean Greens, aka Doc Doom, would achieve round 168 on Shangri-La, making this the first time a player had reached insta-kill rounds. At least, that's what some players believed. You see, Dean only had 4 minutes of footage, which was embarrassing considering most players in 2014 had full gameplay of their records. Furthermore, he never showed any footage of the early rounds, which is the most crucial part of a game. On top of that, his game ended because of a map pack error, which he also did not show. If you don't know what a map pack error means, it's where the game resets. This is important to note as the game resets after a specific amount of hours because of entities, which add up to the 32-bit integer limit. Similar to insta-kill rounds, the game can't go higher than this number, so it resets you back to round 1. But because Dean was playing offline on console, he claimed to have got a map pack error. This makes sense as this has occurred in many games in the past, yet like I said, Dean never showed this error. The reason this is important is if he did show it, that would point to significant evidence that the game was played legitimately. Though, because he did not show the map pack error and had very little gameplay, I can confidently say this record was cheated. Also, just 4 minutes into the video, Dean records himself jumping off a bridge into water. I think Fixu said it the best. This is obviously legit. One does not simply just jump off a bridge unless they are trying to prove a point. GG, dude. Despite the cheating shenanigans, Shangri-La would finally catch a break. Just 1 week later, iAlex996 would become the first player to reach insta-kill rounds legitimately, reaching round 167 on July 30th, 2014. This record shocked the community. Just 1 month after Broski's game, Alex managed to break the previous record by over 11 rounds. On top of that, besides Broski's game, almost every record G-spawned, but Alex's game did not. So how could that be? Well, let's just say the G-spawn was not luck-based. The reason the G-spawn happens is because of the baby zombies. You see, when you shoot the zombies with the baby gun, they will shrink into tiny zombies for a short period, and then regrow back into normal zombies. On paper, this sounds like it shouldn't affect your game, yet it does. When a zombie regrows, they add 1 permanent entity toward the G-spawn. Since there are 24 zombies in a horde, over time, players would mess up and let the zombies regrow, which would cause them to G-spawn. This is why so many early records got the error, is players did not know what was causing it, and many early strategies were inconsistent with killing zombies. Since we now know why Alex did not G-spawn in this game, what are the strategies he used to achieve the first insta-kill rounds? The first and most obvious strategy he used was the M16 because of its consistency. Though, when he reached the first insta-kill rounds, he had to improvise a strategy, and that's when he created full horde up Semtex instas. Alex would use the AK-74 strategy for the horde up, and then throw a Semtex at the ground to instantly kill the zombies. This was nearly the same speed as the M16 strategy, but it was better than nothing. Also, I should note Alex used a pack-a-punch machine to upgrade the M16. This gave him a grenade launcher underneath the M16, which was useful in case he got surrounded by zombies. Unfortunately, just 4 rounds later, Alex would error, putting the game to an end. This is arguably one of the most important records in Shangri-la in Zombies history. The fact Alex achieved this game legitimately and didn't private gameplay or cancel spawns was a huge breakthrough for the map. Furthermore, reaching insta-kill rounds on one of the most difficult zombie maps is insanely impressive. Because of this, it's safe to say nobody else would achieve insta-kill rounds for a little while. Just 3 days later, another player named You're Adopted would reach instas, making this the second time someone reached insta-kill rounds on the map. This showed there is still competition for the record, which is exceptionally important if players want to push the map to its limits. As cool as it was for Adopted to achieve the second insta-kill rounds, none of that would matter if he reset before round 167.
Some people, I believe someone else.
Oh, there it is! There it is! It happened! Oh, there it happened! We did it! There it is! There it is! We fucking reset! We fucking reset! That's it!
Sure, Adopted was a talented player. However, he needed to improve on playing faster if he wanted to beat the record. Moreover, he would start focusing on other maps such as Doris and Shinonuma. This is why Alex did not need to worry about losing his record, but Adopted would eventually come back for revenge. Nearly 10 months later, on May 19th, 2015, Adopted would break Alex's record by reaching round 173. Similar to Alex's game, Adopted ran the M16 strategy for normal rounds, but for the insta-kill rounds, he would stay in the M16 room after he killed the zombies with the Semtex, which allowed for more safe and faster instas. Also, he would restart for the baby gun in the first mystery box. This removed fire sales from your drop cycle, which was insanely helpful as it increased the chances of getting a max ammo. Furthermore, there was a way to guarantee a max ammo every round. You see, if you keep no more than 4 windows unboarded on the map, you can remove the carpenter drop. For example, assuming you have a perfect drop cycle and you're on round 60 or higher, you'll get the insta-kill, nuke, double points, and max ammo drops every single round. This is extremely important to know as it was one of the first instances of players figuring out drop cycles, and it allowed players to save a significant amount of time before they had to do their first baby gun trade. Because of this, it was possible to reach round 180 with the current strategies, but that would slowly change. When Adopted was going for the Shangri-la record, another player named Phoenix, aka Fur Can Walk, was attempting the Shangri-la record, and let's just say he was better than everyone else in every way imaginable. He was the most dedicated, had more games under his belt, and knew the map the best. So if someone broke Adopted's record, it's pretty obvious it would be him. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. On September 17th, 2015, Furret would destroy Adopted's record by reaching round 193, breaking the previous record by 20 rounds. How was this possible? We knew round 180 could be achieved, but to go 13 rounds over the theoretical max just did not seem possible, yet that's what happened. So how did Furret break the previous record by so many rounds? First, we need to take a look at the strategies he used. Just like the previous records, he ran the M16 strategy for normal rounds, but he would make a huge improvement for the insta-kill rounds. Instead of doing full horde ups, he would sit in the corner next to the Semtex wallby and constantly throw the grenades at the ceiling. This would eventually be called Semtex instas, and the time save compared to full horde up instas was massive. The full horde up instas were an estimated 20 to 23 SPH. On the other hand, Semtex instas were an average of 12.5 SPH, which means you could save a minimum of 7.5 seconds every time you killed a horde of zombies. Instead of saving minutes, you could save hours of time. Also, if you're curious as to what SPH means, it means seconds per horde. To be more specific, it tells players how many seconds it takes to kill 24 zombies. Anyway, this is the main reason why Furret pushed the record by over 20 rounds. However, there were still two other reasons. First, Furret played with graphic content disabled. When disabled, it removes crawlers and anything related to graphic content from zombies. Nobody knew this at the time, but disabling graphic content removed a few entities, which allowed Furret to have a longer reset than anyone else. Lastly, Furret knew how to trade better than anyone. Trading is where you swap a weapon for something else, and then try to get that original weapon back. This is what every player does on Shangri-La, as the only way to complete rounds is with the baby gun. Unfortunately, the mystery box is entirely based around RNG. Sometimes you can get the baby gun within 4 hits of the mystery box, and sometimes it can take up to 80 or more hits. So how do you save time with trading? Well, besides the luck aspect, if you hit the mystery box faster than anyone else, you could theoretically save time even if your luck is worse than the previous record. Because of these improvements, this allowed Furret to reach round 193, and let's just say there was almost no way you can improve the record. Unless you found new strategies or somehow got better trades than him, you could not break his record. But that did not stop players from trying. On November 6, 2016, a player named PlayFan achieved round 190 on Shangri-La. Even though this was not a world record, the significance of this game needs to be talked about. Compared to Furret's game, PlayFan played better than him. He took 0 downs, played faster than him up to round 100, and traded just as good as Furret did. Sadly, PlayFan did not get the most ideal RNG, which is why he reset just 3 rounds off the record. Fortunately, he did show it was possible to tie Furret and potentially break his record with the current strategies. Yet, after PlayFan's 190 game, nobody would get close to Furret's record. For the first time ever, Shangri-La had a record drought. For years, many players attempted to break the 193 record. Even though none of them got close, there are a few notable games. In August of 2017, Z-Creen would tie Adopted's old record by reaching round 173. Then, just 1 year prior, Magic Goldbox would reach round 109 running the Semtex strategy. This strategy is entirely different from the insta-kill strategy, as it's used for normal rounds and requires different doors to be open. The way you run this strategy is by keeping the door closed to the AK room and trading in the Semtex room. This forces the zombies to only spawn in the Semtex and M16 room. Then, players will train the zombies into a horde and kill them with the baby gun in this room. Just by looking at the strategy, it's pretty obvious it's extremely difficult. The strategy had been known as early as 2012, but it wasn't until 4 years later the first round 100 would be achieved using this strategy. Furthermore, in January of 2017, a very talented player named Cruppz would achieve round 100 in 7 hours and 16 minutes running Semtex. Even though this was a speedrun record, its significance has had a major impact on Shangri-La. Cruppz achieved this record with controller and ran the strategy very consistently. In a way, this game proved someone could achieve the record in the future using Semtex if they practiced the strategy. If that happened, someone could reach the first round 200 or potentially higher, since this was the fastest strategy on the map. Also, I should note this record has remained in the top 5 fastest round 100s on Shangri-La, which is absurd considering this record is nearly 7 years old. Unfortunately, after Cruppz and Z-Creen's game, no notable records would occur until 2019. During late 2018 to 2019, PlayFan decided to make a return to Shangri-La and attempt to break the record once again. The reasons for this return varies. First, Oxygen for the Win made a spreadsheet in 2018 detailing how to extend your reset to the longest it can reach for every map. Instead of players resetting at 66 hours, you can now reset at 68 or 69 hours. Secondly, a new insta-kill strategy was created. This strategy was named M16 Instas. The way it worked was very simple. Players would pack a punch to M16 and sit in the M16 room using the grenade launcher on the gun. This strategy was found by Unraised and was nearly 3 SPH faster than Semtex instas. This was huge as players could reach the first round 200 more easily. But just with anything, this was easier said than done. PlayFan had the skill to break the record, but things weren't going exactly as planned. He had a few runs which ended because he downed, but he would still continue grinding. It wasn't until May 20th, 2019, PlayFan would break Furret's record by reaching round 194. Unfortunately, PlayFan would down just 50 seconds after achieving the new record. This meant he could have reached round 196 or potentially higher, as he had nearly 2 hours of reset left. Nonetheless, PlayFan finally broke Furret's record, and that's all that mattered. Shangri-la no longer had a record drought. Sadly, in 2021, PlayFan would pass away. This topic is extremely depressing to bring up, but PlayFan really did have a big impact on zombies, especially for Shangri-la. All the way back in 2016, he showed you could break Furret's record with the strategies used at the time. Then, 3 years later, he broke Furret's record by using a new, faster, and more difficult insta-kill strategy. Even though he didn't create the strategy, he was one of the first people to prove its viability for potential new world records. This unsurprisingly brought new motivation to break PlayFan's record. However, it would take a long time before anyone achieved a higher round. One of these players was the previous record holder, Furret Can Walk. Similar to PlayFan, Furret wanted to be the first person to reach round 200 on the map. Unfortunately, this wasn't easy. Furret was trying a somewhat new variation of the M16 strategy for normal rounds. Instead of waiting to get a full horde of zombies and then throwing a Semtex, Furret would throw a Semtex at the floor as soon as he got a horde of zombies. This was more inconsistent but faster than the normal M16 strategy. Players such as Furret could now go above round 200, potentially achieving round 204 or higher if they got lucky. Thankfully, he would get extremely lucky. On July 5th, 2020, Furret would reach round 206. To put into perspective of how insanely impressive this record is, Furret broke the previous record by 12 rounds, making this the biggest round gap since 2015. Then he would take his third and final down on round 166, playing all the way up till round 206 without game overing. Lastly, he reset just 1 minute after achieving 206. To put it bluntly, this was a nearly perfect record. Furret got some good trades in his game and played to the best of his ability. No matter how many times you tried, you could not beat the record using the M16 strategy. If players wanted to achieve a higher round than Furret, they were forced to run the insanely difficult Semtex strategy. Sadly, almost no players made any progress running Semtex. Besides Cruppz and Magical Box's games, only a few players had achieved a higher round. During 2018 to 2019, HGM Rick would achieve round 117 and round 123 running the Semtex strategy. Then, Tango Fam would reach round 130 at the same time frame. It was decent progress, but considering it took nearly 3 years to break Goldbox's 109 game by just 21 rounds, the chances of anyone breaking Furret's record with the Semtex strategy in the near future looked very slim. So, HGM Rick took up the challenge to achieve the record using the Semtex strategy, no matter how long it took. At the start of his grind, it wasn't going exactly as planned. He had a few games go past round 100, the highest which was 133. This was the highest round anyone achieved on Shangri-la running the Semtex strategy. Yet, it was still over 70 rounds away from the world record. If HGM Rick wanted to achieve this record, he would need to put his heart and soul into the grind. After all, you are only given 3 chances throughout an entire game to beat the record using one of the hardest strategies in zombies. Then, in late 2021, things were starting to look better for Rick. He still couldn't beat his 133 game, but overall, he was playing much more consistently. If he kept it up, there was a big chance he could tie Furret's record or potentially break it. It wasn't until November 19th, 2021, HGM Rick broke Furret's record by reaching round 208. Right away, it's pretty obvious this is one of the most impressive games ever played in Zombies history. Rick played up to round 204 without downing, making this the only time anyone has played around 200 or higher flawlessly on Shangri-la. Moreover, this was the first time someone had reached insta-kill rounds using the Semtex strategy. Because of this, Rick had to use Semtexes for insta-kill rounds. To be more specific, the Semtex strategy used for insta-kill rounds was called Semtex Instas version 3. What Rick would do is throw a Semtex in this corner, then near the M16 room, and one in the window next to the Semtex wall by. This was slightly slower than the M16 Instas. To be exact, about 1.5 SPH slower. On top of that, he was forced to run Semtex Instas because the door to power was opened. Fortunately, that did not matter as the Semtex strategy for normal rounds saved a few hours compared to Furret. That's why Rick broke Furret's record by 2 rounds before hitting the reset. Although, it is possible to reach round 210 or potentially higher. Rick played phenomenally well, but there are still a few things that could have been optimized. First, it is possible to get better trades in Rick via good luck. Secondly, you can flip drops into max ammos. This can help save a lot of trades, which in return would save a significant amount of time. On paper, this seems simple, but in reality, it is insanely difficult to do. Once you reach the high rounds, you are forced to kill 3/4 of the horde of zombies, then wait 1 to 2 seconds and kill the remaining zombies. If you get a drop from the remaining zombies, a monkey will grab the drop and then flip it into a max ammo. The reason players are forced to do this is because on BO1, the monkeys that grab the drops won't grab them if you kill the zombies too fast. This makes it extremely frustrating to flip drops into max ammos as it's mostly dependent on getting good luck. Also, there are a few variations of the Semtex strategy that are faster than the version Rick used. The most known one is Semtex version 8, which is nearly 1 SPH faster than Semtex version 2, used during Rick's world record game. Also, Rick made a few more Semtex insta-kill strategies, one of which can be played at 10.8 SPH, nearly 1 SPH faster than the one used during his 208 game. Luckily for Rick, this record has stood for nearly 2 years. No player has reached Semtex Instas since this game, so it's highly likely his record will last for a minimum of 1 year or more. If that's the case, then this is where the record history ends. Right? Not exactly. What if I told you Rick's 208 record, Furret's 206 record, PlayFan's 194 record, and Furret's 193 record had cancelled spawns? This sounds ridiculous, because it is. If we include all the records that cancelled spawns and excluded the cheated records, that would make 6 out of the 19 records on Shangri-la not count. That's nearly 1 out of every 3 records. This makes the record history a little confusing as a good portion of the community considers cancelling spawns as illegitimate. So, does that mean we should count the highest round that did not cancel spawns as the record? Maybe. If that's the case, that would make Nestor's round 195 game achieved in April of 2022 as the world record. However, that would mean PlayFan's 190 record stood for nearly 6 years. This is why Shangri-la is considered to have one of the most controversial record histories. The fact nearly 1/3 of the records are not counted because they cancelled a zombie spawn is absurd. It doesn't matter if you consider Rick's game as a record or Nestor's game as a record. You will have half the community agree with you and the other half disagreeing with you because so many players are split on whether cancelling spawns accidentally should or shouldn't be allowed. Because of this, I will consider Rick's game as a world record. Even though he did cancel a zombie spawn, this is the highest round achieved on the map without cheating. Furthermore, this record was achieved using the Semtex strategy, which adds to the impressiveness of the record. Now, I can finally say this is where the record history ends. But before you go, I would like to give a special thanks to Mr. Mooney and Becca for helping me find these games and give important information regarding these records. Moreover, I'd like to give a special thanks to you. Without some of your feedback, the improvement of my videos would have been drastically slowed. Other than that, thanks for watching.